Hello, I'm Alexandra Guadano, and I'm here today with Gina Katz and Eric Harding from Intel. Gina is the HR Global Shared Services Operations and Planning Manager, and Eric Harding is the HR Optimization Manager. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Gina and Eric are going to talk to us a little bit about Intel's Global Shared Services journey. But before we jump into that, Gina and Eric, can you please give us a little bit of background on yourselves?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I've been with Intel Corporation for 10 years now. Most of my time has been in HR business partner roles. A year ago, I moved into the Global Shared Services organization, had always been very curious about the model, knew they did a lot of work for me as an HR business partner, but wanted to learn more. So I've been with the Global Shared Services organization for 1 year now.
Hi, Alexandra. As you mentioned, Eric Harding. My job as the optimization manager for HR is to really help the Global Shared Service Organization and other organizations in HR improve their business processes. I'm fairly new to HR, only a little over a year. My background is more in manufacturing and as an industrial engineering and lean manager.
So Gina and Eric, it appears that you have a pretty mature shared services center. How did you make this shift, and what did it really take to get where you are today?
I think you'd have to go back and talk a little bit about the history of our shared service center. First of all, I think one of the biggest success factors to our maturity was the fact that we had a very clear mandate from the top, and I'm not just talking about the top of HR, but the top folks at the company as Intel to cut costs. This was back in 2006. And the hallmark of that direction was to establish a shared service center. So for us, we had, I guess, the luxury of having very clear direction and a mandate from the top. That helped us to go faster. A second piece is that we decided to utilize a lift and shift approach because we wanted to go fast. It's probably contrary to some of the research that says that lift and shift isn't always the right approach. But that's the approach we took. And again, it helped us to go very, very quick. We're now focusing on optimization. And I really think that that path has helped us move along that maturity line faster.
So what does your shared services center look like today, and how has it shifted from its previous state?
We'd have to go again back to the history. I'll give you a little history. So prior to 2006, we were very opportunistic in building shared services. We talked about shared services, we dabbled in it a little bit, but it wasn't until we had that clear mandate from the top to go and cut costs and build a shared service center that we got the momentum that we needed. So pre-2006, we were very much decentralized, fragmented. In some areas, we had some regional work that was happening, but it was post-2006 that we took a real hard look, started implementing the shared services model. We now have 2 shared service centers in Penang, Malaysia, and San Jose, Costa Rica, about 250 employees in total between those 2 centers.
Why did you choose those particular locations?
Yeah, there were 3 primary reasons. First and foremost, Intel has a long established history in those locations. We've been in Malaysia for nearly 40 years, Costa Rica about a decade. So we have the employees there, the infrastructure, we knew what we were getting into. That was key for us. A second reason was that we found that those 2 countries have the skill sets that we needed. So we did some hiring from within, but we also looked externally and found that the skill sets out there were a good match for us. English proficiency being one, but there were a lot of other skill sets that we looked at as well. A third reason is simply because of the cost factor. The labor cost in those 2 locations is much cheaper than what you can find in the US.
So how have you set up the technological foundation to support the Shared Services Center?
Yeah, I would say that looking at what Gina just talked to us about around being already established in Costa Rica and Malaysia, a lot of the technology foundation was already there. So we just used the technology that was already being used by the other Intel employees in those locations. And we also, as Gina mentioned, we also looked at the external university system and school systems to make sure that we had the right skill sets being developed in the school systems in those regions, and we were able to use that information in order to make sure that we were making good decisions for our locations.
What do you think it is that makes these two shared services centers so highly performing?
My role is to help the organization improve their business processes. The thing that I have recognized is that it really starts with the people. The people in these shared service centers are really dedicated Intel employees that really want to be part of high-performing organizations. I would say that starts with the leadership in the organization. At the top of the shared service organization, the management team is highly committed to not only delivering high-quality information to the Intel employees, but also continuously improving their processes so that they are able to become a more and more high-performing organization. I would also say that there's a little bit of healthy competition having the two global shared service centers between these two centers to try to, if you will, outdo each other to become more and more high-performing and have the top business processes and the top quality and the top customer experience.
So speaking of recruiting and staffing, how have you gone about staffing the right type of talent to meet the goals for your centers of excellence?
There's a number of ways to answer that question, and I'm going to start with hiring the best talent. We put a lot of effort in finding the very best managers that we could for these shared service centers, because if you hire the right people, there's not as much training that needs to happen because they have the right attributes. And that goes for the managers as well as the employees. We took a lot of time to hire the right folks that had the right skill sets already, or at least for the most part, so that training didn't have to be a huge focus area for us, so that we were on an enormous training ramp. I think the other thing to mention is that we do have an extensive training curriculum for these employees, utilizing a lot of the courses that Intel University has. We have the luxury of being a big company with extensive training programs, both for managers and for individual contributors, and we take advantage of those programs. We've also been working to identify the skills and competencies of each of the functional areas within the shared service center, and then aligning curriculum to that. And it may be training programs, it may be rotations that we put these folks in, stretch assignments, tiger teams, that kind of thing. We view skill development as much more than just training. We're also looking, when you look at it from an external standpoint, we're looking at some of the certification programs out there for payroll, for program managers, that type of thing. And there's internal certification programs at Intel as well that we're utilizing.
So which internal operations within your shared services center are proving to be the most valuable for your employees?
I think I want to answer that in a very high level way. I think one of the things that we do really well is we treat our shared service center employees as Intel employees, because they are. And so they have a very they're very invested in the success of the shared service center, because they're very invested in the success of Intel. We expect our shared service employees to know very well what's going on in the business, because they in turn then will serve our customers very well, because they'll have a real deep insight into what's going on with the customer. Treating them as Intel employees, again, because they are Intel employees, means they have access to all of the wonderful benefits that are offered at Intel, the training and development programs that I mentioned a moment ago being one of those. I think a final mention is the emphasis that we place on great place to work within the shared service center organization, whether that's building community within the organization or externally in the communities in Malaysia and Penang. I think that goes a long way in developing an authentic community within the shared services organization.
What kind of analytics and metrics are in place to measure the success of your shared services centers?
Yeah, I'd say that the team has put together a really comprehensive package that the management team really looks at and responds to, and looking at different types of metrics in the organization. one of the things that the organization looks at is quality. As I mentioned before, we're really focused on delivering high performance and high quality to the employees. And so looking at our quality metrics and looking at our defect-free rates for the organization, making sure that we're delivering the right response the first time. Other things that we look at are employee development, as Gina mentioned. So we actually track how we're doing around employee development. What types of curriculum are the employees participating in, and are they growing and developing? And on the other side, we look at the management team, and we actually do surveys twice a year to look at the leadership and the management focus from the organization, and make sure that the employees have the opportunity to discuss and reflect how their managers are doing and how they're performing, and giving them that direct feedback. We also look at the typical types of metrics that other organizations look at, as far as achieving service level agreements and the throughput time, those types of things.
Well, Gina and Eric, thank you so much for sharing your story and your successes with us today. That's all the time we have. My name is Alexandra Guadano, and thank you for joining us. Until next time.